G'day folks, and welcome to this review of Batman Gotham City Chronicles. This is a tactical skirmish game for 2 to 4 players, and it's a result of a very successful Kickstarter campaign where over 19,000 people pledged over $4.4 million in support of this game. It was designed by Frédéric Henry and published by Monolith games in 2019, and there are over 30 different expansions for this game. This is really for lovers of miniatures. It is packed full of various different types of figures from the Batman universe. Many different types of Batman. Indeed, Catwoman, the Joker, the Riddler. You've got them all, and all their henchmen built into these massive expansions. A good friend of mine, Barks, backed this. He went all in and he received boxes and boxes and boxes of these expansions, and we've been able to play various scenarios from the base game, the Arkham Asylum expansion, and the Wayne Manor expansion. Scenarios in this game, so as I said, it's a 2-4 player game. Scenarios are focused on play count, so you'll either have a 2-player scenario, a 3-player scenario, or a 4-player scenario. In the base game, there are 7 2-player scenarios, 7 3-player scenarios, and 10 4-player scenarios, for a total of 24 scenarios in that base game. The Arkham Asylum and the Wayne Manor expansion add 8 scenarios each. And our experience has been that every scenario is different. It's a different story, different tactics being employed, different heroes are available in each scenario. Setting up the scenario, you'll typically have a choice of 2 or 3 heroes for each person to select from. You pick that hero, set them up, and play through the story and the scenario. So it is, as I said, 2 to 4. One player will always play as the villains, as sort of the overlord, controlling many different villain characters, henchmen, prisoners, thugs, and the like. And they use this sort of action track board that was made famous by Monolith Games' Conan. That was published a few years ago, and uses the exact same combat system, activation system, movement system as seen in Batman. But Batman takes this same system and it kind of steps it up a notch. They've made various improvements, various sort of skill traits that sort of are more dynamic, more interesting compared to what you see in Conan. I think Conan is a good, solid game. I can play this with my kids. Batman, I think, was so much more interesting, so much more fascinating, and you just seem to be making more interesting decisions in Batman. It is still, so let me point out a few things. There's a big rule here. Monolith Game is kind of famous for their poorly written rulebooks, incomplete rulebooks. They are, I believe, originally written in French and then translated to English. Translations don't come over very well, and there's often a lot of gaps. Conan was full of holes, and Batman is similar. Fortunately, look, if you're going to play Batman, Universal Head has produced some outstanding player aids for this game, and that's all I used to learn and play this game, those player aids. So check them out on the Board Game Geek files section if you're ever going to play this game. So it is a fairly complex game. There's a lot that can potentially be going on. Various kind of skill traits shaping your characters. Your character board will have a character like Batman or Catwoman, and they'll have all these skill traits, and they reflect various bonuses and abilities. It might be, if you score a hit, you get a bonus hit, or you are evasive, you can ignore 2 enemies in your space, things like this. And all these, I think it's really all those skills that make this a complex game, because you're wanting to utilize those skills to your advantage and look for situations where you can employ those skills. So if I'm, for example, Huntress, and she is really focused on ranged specializations, and I'm looking to be in situations where I can shoot my crossbow at range, and from memory I think she does a bonus hit when she scores a hit at range, and she has retaliation at range, so if someone shoots at her from range she can instantly retaliate. So you're looking to employ these skills. the basic gameplay is remarkably simple, and it's an easy game to teach and learn. The game starts with upkeep, you advance a turn marker, and you pretty much go straight into either the hero or the villain turn. On the hero turn, and as I said, you'll have one villain character and multiple heroes, depending on how many other people you've got. A hero will firstly move any fatigue cubes, any sort of energy cubes to their fatigue area, resolve any start of turn effects, there usually aren't many of those, then they'll declare their stance. This is the first sort of main decision you're making. Heroes have either one of two stances. They are either active or they are resting. Now if you're resting, you'll typically recover more fatigue. You'll have more of these energy cubes moving to your active pool, usually around 5, sometimes 6 for most heroes. So you're recovering more of these energy cubes to make them available for future turns. However, when you're resting, you can't do much at all. You can't move, you can't attack, you can only really defend, and not much else. Free actions, re-rolls, and that's about it. They can't move around, they can't attack. If you're active, you'll still recover some cubes, usually 2 or 3, but you can do pretty much anything you want in terms of your range of actions. Once you've made that decision on stance, you perform those actions. If you're resting, you're not doing anything. If you're active, you are moving around the map, and it's as simple as whenever you do an action, you typically will pick up an energy cube from your available pool, and you'll place it in a little pot on your player board that matches that action. So if I'm doing a move action, I'll pick up an energy cube and place it in the move action area. If I'm doing a melee attack, I will pick up a cube and place it in the melee attack area. The number of cubes I place in these areas reflects how strenuously I'm engaging in that action. So for every cube I place in the move action, I get a move point. This is in addition to my move bonus. So I may have a move bonus of 2. If I spend 2 cubes, I get a total of 4 movements. It's area to area movement, so you're moving around quite easily. There's sometimes difficult terrain which is more expensive to move through or upon and things like that, but mostly it's pretty straightforward. Attacking, likewise, if I spend 2 cubes, I get 2 attacks, base attacks. It's basically how many dice I'm rolling. Every character has a different sort of attack quality. You may have weapons to supplement this, or special abilities which do things. You'll roll the dice, and you're basically looking to score hits. Once you've inflicted hits on the enemy, they may get a defense. Villains usually have an innate defense, let's say 1, so they'll block 1 hit. Sometimes I roll a dice to block these hits, and they need to score hits to block those hits. And of course, the villain character can spend dice to roll on the defense as well. And again, they're trying to cancel out those hits and reduce them to 0. Most villains will have 1 health, so 1 wound, and they're eliminated. When your character is attacked and when they take wounds, they move these energy cubes from their fatigue area or their healthy area, if the fatigue area is empty, to their wound area, and they become wounded. And it's more difficult for these cubes to recover from the wound area. If you're recovering cubes from the wound area, they first go to fatigue, and then they go to active, usually. That's what happens. So taking wounds sort of has a long-term impact on your available pool of energy. So your management of these energy cubes is one of the more fascinating elements of this game. It's a bit that I really like. You can go all out and spend 12 energy cubes in one turn, do a heap of actions, but then the next turn you have to rest, and you'll only get 5 cubes back, and the next turn you have to rest again. So often you're wanting to do sort of as much as possible with as few cubes as possible. On the attack, every cube you put into that attack is an extra dice, increasing your chance of scoring hits, but it's costing you energy, which is sort of sapping your long-term strength. A scenario will typically run for anything from, let's say, 5 to 7 turns for most scenarios. So that's a long, well, it doesn't seem like much, but it's a long time you have to manage your energy throughout that scenario. If you're spending all your energy in one go in the first turn, you'll have to rest and then rest. On turn 4, you might have a full complement again. But yeah, so energy management and action management. Managing how much energy you dedicate to an action is really important. There's a lot of, so I mentioned melee attack. These skills complement your attack. So as I said, you may have electric shock, batarang, or something like that, which does extra damage if you score a hit. or you may roll an extra die in combat. You may have martial arts, and I think from memory, martial arts is if you score a hit in melee combat, you score an additional hit. In addition to those sort of attack actions, you've also got manipulation actions. So you've got basically trying to unlock doors, for example. You're manipulating objects, or you're trying to open a crate, so you're trying to open objects. That's a special type of action as well, and various characters have special sort of abilities that complement that. Then you have thought actions, and these are things like hacking into computer terminals to open doors. And again, you'll spend cubes to determine how many die you roll, and you may have a particular door or a particular computer to hack may have a certain difficulty, needing, for example, 3 successes, and you need to roll basically 3 successes. So you're making that decision about how many dice do I roll to trying to get a success here. If you roll 2 dice, and they're not regular d6, they're sort of special dice, particularly this game, not 6-sided, but with various hits on each side. They're also colour-coded differently. So you have a white dice and a black dice, a yellow dice, an orange dice and a red dice, and they all have different faces in terms of the number of hits. The black dice, for example, has 2 sides with 4 hits. That's about the best you can get. But then I think there's one other side with 1 hit and then 3 blanks. The red dice, from memory, has 1 side with 3 hits, 3 with 2, 2 with 1, and then I think 1 miss. And then it goes sort of down from there. The orange dice is in between, the yellow dice is pretty weak. The white dice, from memory, has 2 2s on alternate sides and then 4 misses. So you'll be kind of making decisions about what dice to roll, how many dice to roll, depending on their strength. This informs your decision, how much energy you're spending, how much energy you've got left. And it's every scenario is a rush for time for the heroes. They need to achieve their objective before, or usually, sometimes it's a villain trying to achieve their objective before the turn track runs out. So, spending these energy cubes to manipulate your actions. The villain character, the sort of overlord, does much the same thing. On their turn, though, they have a track, a river of villain cards, and they can spend energy cubes to activate particular villains in that track. Once a villain is activated, they're slid to the end of the track, and everything else slides down, which makes this end of the track much cheaper. So they'll activate 1 or 2 villain groups on their turns. When they activate these villains, let's say they activate the thugs, they'll activate pretty much all the thugs on the board. There may be 2, 3 or 4 thugs, and they'll all activate as a group. So the Overlord gets to activate sort of multiple units, but they're always weaker in terms of they're very vulnerable, but they can sometimes do a lot of damage, and they can slow you down because they encumber your movement around the map. And I guess their idea, they're trying to get in your way and slow down your plans. So yeah, you've got energy management, you've got sort of action selection, you're trying to use your skills to the best of your ability. And as I mentioned, those skills and the breadth of those skills really, in my opinion, makes this game shine above Conan. Some of the skills are really fascinating. You've got various, combo, you've got circular strike, counter attack. Electricity is very interesting. You can push your limits, take a wound, I think it is, to throw another dice into an action. So it's much of your decision revolves around blending your energy pool, your available energy, your fatigue, how many wounds you've taken, what turn it is, with what you need to achieve. And as I said, every scenario is different. So, for example, one of the scenarios we played was called Experiments in the Madhouse, and we were facing off against Professor Pig and Hugo Strange. We had to hack into some computer terminals to open some doors, to access these crates, to unlock them with complex manipulations. And yeah, we struggled with this one. There's just the swarm of enemies overwhelmed us, and we failed. The heroes failed that mission. Another scenario we played is called Party Crashes. There's a party at Wayne Manor, and it's basically Alfred and Bruce Wayne in his dinner suit, and the Riddler has arrived to try and find out where the Batcave is, and he is trying to find clues around Wayne Manor to the location of the Batcave, and we have to stop him, and he's rushing to bring his thugs in and find these clues and search for these clues and find information, and we're trying to kill his thugs and knock them out as quickly as possible. And again, it's a race for time. We also played a scenario called Golden Opportunity, which takes place in the bank, and that features Deathstroke. And I am struggling to remember much about that. Oh, we had to hack into... Deathstroke is trying to hack into security terminals, and we're trying to destroy the computer terminals. So we're both trying to access the same sort of sites on this map, and we're racing for time. He's trying to hack them, we're trying to destroy them. And again, race for time, trying to do these things at the same time. Just one last example, another scenario we played was called Biological Scourge, featured Ra's al Ghul and the Ratcatcher, where they are trying to release a plague of rats, and we're trying to basically find an antidote, I think, to this plague and destroy the rats. All four of those scenarios I mentioned were very close, often coming down to a final die roll and a final turn of the scenario. The Ratcatcher one, we had to, I think, it came down to a final roll in the very last turn. The Riddler one was not quite as close. The Bank one also came down, I think, from memory, to a final die roll and the final turn. So all the scenarios that we've played have felt very finely balanced, coming down to a few die rolls here or there. And that die rolling really is critical. As I said, a lot of these actions, attacking, defending, revolves around dice rolls of a variable quality and quantity. You are making these decisions based on the quality of those dice and your odds of success. There's also a reroll pool. So if you run out making your die roll with 3 dice and you don't like the result, you can add some cubes, energy cubes, to the what's called a reroll space, a reroll action space, to re-roll some of these dice. The careful balance of these scenarios, all the ones that we've played, and again there are dozens and dozens of scenarios now for variable play counts, but the scenarios that we've played have all been very finely balanced, and we felt that every scenario could have gone either way based on how certain die rolls came out. And certainly some die rolls are more important than others. When you're rolling to hack a computer terminal or destroy a computer terminal, that's critical. When you're rolling to attack Ra's al Ghul or the Ratcatcher, that's more important than rolling to attack the thugs. Playing that Biological Scourge scenario, I got shot by a shotgun to the face, and the attacker, the thug, scored 4 hits on me, and I was Azrael at the time from memory, and I rolled 3 defense dice. I didn't want to get hit with a shotgun, so I put 2 dice into my defense pool. I got a bonus dice for defense. I rolled these orange dice, which are not bad. It's probably the second best dice in the game. And I got 0 hits, which meant that I took 4 wounds, which really crippled me. So some dice rolls are more critical than others, and if you're the type of person who feels that the dice gods hate you, this is really the kind of game that could frustrate you, because some rolls just go beautifully and you're scoring 12 hits on attack to kind of wipe out an opponent. Other times you're rolling 0 on all these defense die to really cripple your chances. And we had similar situations like that. We failed a mission when we failed to destroy a computer terminal. Things like little things like that, just because we didn't roll well enough on the hero side. So yeah, decision making is all about managing your energy, determining what actions to do. Sometimes you want to fight the enemy, the villains, to kind of clear some space around you and prevent them from acting. You're often looking at the villain's river to see what cards are kind of coming out next, what villains will he be activating next, and you'll often look to tactically attack those villains to reduce their strength, reduce the number of those kind of villains on the board, to make his next activation less powerful. Other times you're just racing for an objective and you'll be navigating and evading enemies and spending extra energy to move out of sort of spaces where you're encumbered to get where you need to go. But yeah, a lot of the time you can make sort of intelligent decisions, but a lot of the time your interactions with key mission-oriented sort of objects or computers or goals come down to good die rolling. And as I said, because those scenarios are so finely balanced, it really does feel that those dice rolls kind of make or break your chances at winning the scenario. So that's how it is, but it's a potential concern, I think, for some people as well. A lot of people won't like that idea that because the scenario is finally hanging in the balance, it comes down to die roll, and a good die roll or a bad die roll to kind of shape the outcome of the scenario. When the Riddler invaded Wayne Manor, he got some brilliant rolls for these clues and found a series of clues very quickly and kind of just waltzed in to discover the location of the Batcave. He got those kind of critical rolls very early on, which made it quite easy for him in the rest of the scenario. Certainly some scenarios are more fun to play than others. There's a lot of variation though. Every scenario takes place over quite a large battle map, basically. Beautifully illustrated terrain, a lot of detail here. And of course, in these images, I'm using my friend Barks' game and his beautifully painted miniatures. Check out his blog. I've mentioned this before, but he's an amazing painter. And he's painted all the miniatures for this game and done a great job. And that really elevates the game to a new level. So as I said, it's a really, it's focused on energy management. It's a tactical combat game. Every mission is very different. There's a lot of replayability. There are 24 missions in the base game and about 8 for the Arkham Asylum and Wayne Manor expansions each. There are many other expansions as well that add various villains and heroes, and they feature throughout these various scenarios. It's interesting. I found what I liked about the game was exploring the different heroes and how they're all got their different strengths and weaknesses. So Catwoman, for example, who I played in one scenario, she's not really great at attacking. She only rolls yellow dice on attacking. She gets free rerolls from memory, but she's very evasive, so she can kind of backflip around the map, and it was really nice. It felt very sort of thematic that she was doing this. Batman just punches really hard, and he has a couple of special abilities. He can do combos, so if he kills an enemy, he can attack again another enemy in space. If he kills an enemy, he can attack again. From memory, he can also push his limits, so he can take a wound to add another red die. Azrael has his flaming sword, and he's really powerful when using that in melee combat. I mentioned Huntress. She uses her crossbow at range. She's really good at range combat. Everyone's different. They're all unique characters that use their skills in particular ways, and it's really fun to go through these all with these painted miniatures and to test out their kind of strengths and I guess weaknesses as well. Sometimes they're not good at everything. So there's a lot in these games. It's a very cinematically, I guess, thematic game. There's a lot of tension building up. The story, every mission gives you a little brief description of what's going on. The Riddler is here at Wayne Manor whilst you've got a party going on, and there are guests moving around the board as well. Because of that fine line between victory or defeat, it feels very cinematic, and these rolls feel very critical. Everyone's reaching over to see what the die rolls are. It's a great multiplayer experience. 2, 3 or 4 players. One player always has to play the villain, the bad guy. Of course, it's quite a different experience for them because they're controlling dozens of villains, these thugs on the board, and they kind of feel like ants, just being crushed under the foot of Batman at times. Sometimes, as I said, they bring out these shotguns. So, as it came out a few years ago, there is enough gameplay, if you just want to sort of dip your toe in, there's enough gameplay in that base game, Batman Gotham City Chronicles, 24 missions, as I said, 7 2-player scenarios, 7 3-player scenarios, and 10 4-player scenarios. So it's a lot of variation for you to get a sense of how it all works out. Thanks for watching, everyone. That is Batman Gotham City Chronicles.